Hello, what is going on, everybody? Bruce here, and I just want to say howdy. Having a great weekend. It's Sunday, actually, and I'm going to do a video addressing something I've talked about before, which is live plants. And the whole purpose of this is to get people who are a little afraid of moving into live plants to sit back, relax. Here's a little bit of advice without getting real in depth on stuff. But a little bit of advice on how to move forward and trying to get some live plants into your aquarium. So sit back, relax. We're going to take a look at some of my tanks, and I'm going to tell you about them and tell you what works for me as far as growing plants. And you can obviously see by the plants in my tanks that I've had some luck. So thanks again for watching as always, and let's get started. Alright guys, so first thing is first, and that is light. Plants need light in your aquarium the same way plants need light outside. That is probably a good 8 to 12 hours on average for most plants. Some will need less intensity than others, but they're going to typically need 8 to 12 hours. So again, some will need some bright light, some will need some dim light. A lot of times plants that need bright light will still grow in dim light. They just don't do as well. They may not be as thick, may not be as lush, or they just may grow slower. But unfortunately, no, some need bright light, and if they don't have it, they will just die off, or as we call it, melting, when they just kind of slowly disintegrate. You can use whatever, LED lights, tube lights, but just keep in mind that your 8 to 12 hours of light is going to be also affected by ambient light. So if you have your fish tank sitting in front of a window and it gets daylight all day long, you may have to cut back on the hours that you use your lights at night so that you're not getting 18 hours, 20 hours of light into your aquarium. This can be a problem for plants. It can be a problem for the fish also, and can also be a problem for with getting algae. So there you go. Now, question becomes, what are you going to grow? My suggestion is you have a decision to make. Are you going to grow what you like or what grows? Hopefully it works out to be the same thing. Now, if you notice here, I see made a note, don't panic. Sometimes leaves are going to die. Let them die. You can snip stuff off. Just be careful. Don't snip too much off or your plants will just give up. So, but it's going to depend. Your water type. Water changes are very good for your plants. If you're using RO water, you're taking most of the nutrients out. So you may have to do some fertilizer or not. But you're going to want to put in a small amount of plants of a wide variety and see what happens. You're going to find some plants, like in this tank here, those crypts on the left, man, they just, they grow like crazy. Moss and a bunch of other stuff grows really good in my tanks too, which I like. And then you have to decide, are you going to be using fertilizers? What kind? Some people like to use liquid fertilizers that they add just a pump every other day or so of different companies that make fertilizers. Are you going to use CO2 or not? And again, I don't like to have to use a bunch of stuff because I want it to be as cheap and as natural as possible. I do occasionally use fertilizers. If my plants are not looking particularly great and I don't know exactly what's going on with the chemistry of the tank, I may add some fertilizer just to try and spruce things up. But in general, what you're seeing here is the result of plants with great root systems that are eating a lot of nutrients right out of the soil. So plant them, leave them alone, and in my opinion, don't start moving plants around until they're like this, where they're so grown up that you can hack them back and it's not going to affect anything. Once they're large enough that you can trim them, then you can usually even move them around in the substrate. But be careful. Don't move something from a real bright light area to a dim light area because you will kill them off. Also, don't over clean in the substrate around your plants. I know that if you're going to use a lot of fertilizer and CO2, you can keep your substrate as clean as you want because there's always going to be nutrients floating around in the water. But if you just want a natural tank and don't want the hassle of a lot of chemicals being, having to add a lot of chemicals or CO2, then just don't over clean your substrate. You can still do water changes, and there will still be a lot of stuff down in the substrate for your plants to eat. So don't get me wrong, water changes are still very important, but when it comes to actually cleaning up in your gravel, be very light and don't take the stuff that's getting down in there that you want your plants to eat. So there you go, guys. That's about the best advice I have to offer for you. It's really not rocket science. You can try different things, and if it works for you, then fantastic. But otherwise, try it, because if you don't, you'll never know. So there you go, guys. I know it's kind of a simplistic thing that I've said here. You've got people who get really, really in depth on plants. I just don't want to do that because I just don't think it's that tough of a subject. You go down to the local lake, and there's plants growing in there because there's food in there for them. There's light for them. And this is the same thing with your aquarium. If there's food and there's light, your plants are going to grow. So again, what extra stuff you give to your plants is entirely up to you. If you want to spend a fortune on the fanciest CO2 thing, then go for it. Again, mine, I can tell you, I do a once a week 30 to 40, maybe 50% water change on all of my tanks. I have well water, luckily, so I have good natural nutrients in there. Yeah, but that's it. And like I said, other than if I have a problem, I'm typically not putting stuff into the tank very often, like additives. So it's just not good for the fish, in my opinion. So that's that. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask. But otherwise, like I said, go out, buy several kinds of plants, a small amount of them, put them in, leave them alone, have patience, and then see what grows. And then the ones that grow well for you, get a whole bunch of them and enjoy them. So thanks so much for your time today, guys. We'll talk to you later. And as always, take care of yourselves. Thanks. Bye-bye.